And so in today's class, we'll be exploring logistic regression and its application in neural networks with the use of a sigmoid activation function, along with a little bit of forward propagation and back propagation. So let us start the notebook from the start. Deep learning is nothing but a machine learning technique which learns features directly from data. This means that you do not require to have any feature extraction method as opposed to the one in machine learning. So deep learning has been in use since machine learning algorithms cannot handle big amounts of data, and in terms of performance, they perform better than machine learning algorithms with massive amounts of data. So the applications of deep learning are in the fields of speech recognition, image classification, text processing, and recommendation systems in websites like Flipkart or Amazon. So the difference between machine learning and deep learning is that you have to give the features of an output manually. So if you have good feature engineering implementation in your model, you can get a better model out. Whereas a deep learning, it learns and classifies the features itself from data when we get data into a neural network. So for example, in let's take a dog versus cat classification where we classify the images of dogs and cats. In machine learning, you have to give feature samples manually and imply feature extraction. Whereas in deep learning, just by passing the image of the dogs and cats, it learns the features from these images and then builds an accurate model out of it. So now let's get into our implementation. So let's do the basic inputs in NumPy for linear algebra, Pandas for data processing, and Matplotlib for the data visualization. Okay, this done. So now our data set is the one with numbers of a sign language, in which we have numbers in the sign language from 0 to 9. So since we are doing a logistic regression classification method, we will use only two outputs, since logistic regression is a binary classification algorithm which takes only two output components. Here let us take 0 and 1. So our images have a standard size already defined in the dataset of 64 by 64 pixels. So these are the indices of sign 0 between 204 and 408, having total 205 samples, and sign 1 is between 822 and 1027, also having 206 samples. But in order to enforce data balance and class balance and avoid class imbalance, we will use 205 each of these images. So one thing to keep in mind is that in this case, uh, 205 samples is really less for a deep learning problem. So, but since we are learning how the application of logistic regression in deep learning, let us not worry about the size of the data we are playing with. So, firstly, let us load the data. So, it's stored in the form of a NumPy file, NPY file. If you can see here, yeah. So, it's stored in the form of a NumPy file. Just extract here. Yeah, done. So x and y, x stand for the independent variables and y for the dependent variables. So we had loading the dependent and the independent variables, setting our pixel size, a 64 by 64 image, and display the images now. So we are displaying a 0 in this hand signal and 1 as this. So similarly, let us get the required data points now. What we want is the data for 0 and 1. So we're going to concatenate the two NumPy arrays. So what concatenation does is, let us assume these are two NumPy arrays. So when you add these arrays, that means implement NumPy.concat method upon these arrays, we get a resultant array which looks like this. So let us say this is an array for 0 and this is an array for that stores 1, and here you have 0 and here you have 1. So this is your data which you have obtained by concatenating along the axis 0. Axis 0 means along the rows horizontally. So now we are going to implement an appropriate array for output. So here we are defining the targets. So z is 0 and o is 1s, and we'll concatenate it along the axis and apply reshape along this, so that it's appropriate and gets appended to it like a data frame. So it will just look like this once you apply it. Let's assume the targets are here. So the first set is 0, which is nothing but this, and the next set is 1, which is the one images here. So and then perform the operation. Yeah. So since it is a three-dimensional NumPy array, we have to apply a transformation to make sure it is two-dimensional, which means it can be understood by the neural network that is going to take it in. So before we get on to that, let us split this data into training and testing. So let us split it by 90-10. 90% of the data goes for training and 10% for testing. So from sklearn's model selection module, let us import the train test split function and apply train test split among our independent and dependent data. So it is splitting it. And xtrain.shape is also a three-dimensional NumPy array. And xtest.shape has 41 images, but it's also a three-dimensional NumPy array. So since we have two three-dimensional arrays of xtrain and xtest, in order to be able to use it in your model, we need to convert them into a two-dimensional array. So how you perform this is NumPy array name. Here xtrain is a NumPy array, right? So you apply a reshape function upon the NumPy array, which means xtrain shape of 0. Xtrain dot shape of 0 is nothing but 369. 369 images for training data versus xtrain shape of 1 into xtrain shape of 2. So xtrain shape of 1 is 64 and xtrain shape of 2 is also 64. So 64 square, which will get you this xtrain dot shape of 1. So 4096. So this one is going to be converted into a 4096, 369 shapes. Similarly, let us apply it upon X test and see the new shapes that you have obtained. So now the new shape is 369, 4096 for training data and 41, 4096. So basically it will look like this. What you have done to it now is, you transform this data in such a way that this one, the image name here, followed by 4096 features. So basically, let us consider this as the index. Yes. Then similarly, how you apply it in pandas data frames. So this is shape is going to be 369, 64, 64, whereas this one is going to be 369, 4096. Yeah, so it becomes much easier for the data to be trained on the model. So now let us just define the training and testing data now and get them out. So this is what we have got. So we have just taken the transpose of this and displayed the shapes of them. So now that we have our training data ready for our training, let us get into logistic regression. It is nothing but a binary classification algorithm in which you have two different outputs that are labeled as 0 and 1. So let us go into this. So we have seen why we used only two different signs in our certain problem for logistic regression. Moving on, it is also the simplest form of a neural network in which we have a sigmoid activation function that implements the logistic regression equation, which you can see here. And our parameters W and B stand for weights and bias, as you had seen here, weights and bias. And T stands for transpose, transpose of the weights in matrix W, whose shape is 4096, 1. Hence, we have applied transpose here also. And what we are going to do is, there are weights corresponding to every pixel or a sample of an image or class. So X is an image which you're going to pass, image or a data. The images can be in the form of NumPy arrays, which we have obtained right now. Also, it can be in the form of data which you have from your pandas data frame or a CSV file. Then now that you have obtained your function z is nothing but W transpose into X plus B. Place it in the sigmoid function and calculate its probability being 0 or 1 with respect to the threshold we'll determine. So sigmoid has its outputs in the range of -1, +1, which you can see here. Sigmoid function. So this is the graph of a sigmoid function. Yeah, this one describes it better. Yeah. So from -1, okay, this is sigmoid function. Yeah, from 0 to +1, two classes. The other one is softmax actually. Softmax is -1 to +1. Sigmoid is 0 to +1 if you see this graph. So this is the function which is going to lie within our nodes. And you're passing 1 by 1 plus e power minus z as the activation function, which is sigmoid for logistic regression. So next thing is, let us initialize the parameters w and b. So basically, w and b, let us set them to be 0.01 and 0 respectively. And let us just first define the functions which initializes the parameters. Takes the w and returns it as 0.01 and b as 0. But these will be adjusted over and over again in each and every training iteration. Next thing is, we are defining a sigmoid function. Sigmoid function is nothing but y is equal to 1 divided by 1 plus exponential of minus z. So exponential is obtained by numpy.exp, which implements the e power function, this one. And we are going to return the sigmoid activation function result as y head. So now that you already told me about what a neural network does, what the weights and biases are used for, let us get into a small summary of them again and then proceed to forward and back propagation. So our main goal in logistic regression is to set the parameters w and b such that the cost function is reduced. So actually cost function is nothing but the sum of losses for a given image, for every image. So what we have to do is we have to reduce the loss. By reducing the loss, we reduce the cost. So parameters are updated using gradient descent method, which happens in the next steps. And yes, it goes back, forward, back and forth, back propagation, forward propagation. So actually for every value in the parameter w and b, there will be a corresponding cost value. So moving on, let's get into the forward propagation and back propagation. Next parameter which we will now come across is the learning rate. So learning rate is nothing but which is a parameter which is defined by you. So it can be it can be 0.01 or 0.1 or 0.5 or 0.005, anything. So let us see the application of learning rate in our model. So b is equal to b minus learning rate into gradient of b into w, into gradient of b. This is learning rate with respect to b, and with respect to w, w is equal to w minus learning rate or into gradient of w. So this thing will apply it in our code and see how it affects the model. So these formulas are coming from the derivative of cost function with respect to w while back propagation. Let's get into the forward and back propagation definition. So first one is, in the forward and back propagation function, we will take the weights and biases as input and x train and y train, independent variables for training and dependent variables for training. First things first, let us define our function of neural network. Do you see this? So since it is w transpose into x plus b, it is a dot function because here we are playing with vectors, right? So it is a dot product of transpose of w and x, and you add b to that. B is nothing but the bias. Now that we have calculated z as w transpose into x plus b, let us calculate the sigmoid of z, which implements the probability through sigmoid function, which is nothing but logistic regression. So next thing is we are going to calculate the loss. So this is going to be the formula for loss function. So you can take it as it is. So it is negative of 1 minus y train into numpy log of 1 minus y head. Numpy log is nothing but the logarithm log to base 10 of 1 minus y head minus y train into logarithm of y head. So it's just a simple formula for loss function. You do not have to memorize it. But what we are doing it here is, instead of calling it or loading it through a Keras or a TensorFlow module, we are defining it ourselves here. And following by, let us take the cost function. Cost function is the sum of loss for every image, right? Hence we are taking a sum here, numpy.sum. All the losses, their sum divided by all the images, the number of images, because we want the cost function whose definition states that the sum of losses for every image. So the next part, let us get the backward propagation function now. So let's calculate the weights. So this is the formula for calculating the weights in back propagation, in which you do a dot product between x train and y head minus y train. Y head is nothing but the calculated value sigmoid of z minus y train. Y train is the actual value that you are passing to the function, divided by the number of images, which is x train dot shape of 1. So similarly, let us do a derivative bias. Derivative bias is nothing but b, which you are going to calculate right now. Next thing is it is a sum of y head minus y train. The predicted value minus actual value divided by the shape of the training one, which is number of images. X train dot shape of 1 gives you the number of images. So it is a derivative of cost function with respect to b, which gets a derivative. So now that you got the weight value and bias value through backward propagation. So we'll just define a gradient dictionary. So this is a dictionary data type whose keys are going to be derivative weight and derivative bias. So in this dictionary, we are going to pass the weights, which is calculated here, and bias, which is calculated here, and return the cost, which you have calculated previously, and the gradients. So now let us define this function with shift.enter, done. And now let us define the various parameters that we will be using in our neural network. So since you have seen back propagation and forward propagation, so these steps keep on happening regularly so as to get the best weight and bias combination out, such that the cost is minimal, right? So now that we have calculated the new values for gradients, which is nothing but w and b, we will pass w and b here along with the training data and testing. I mean the independent data for training and the dependent variables for training, learning rate, which is defined by you, and number of iteration again, which is defined by you. So since we have all these values with us, the implementation of this function is going to be quite easy. Let us define a list that contains all the costs that have been incurred during your multiple iterations and the indices of the rows. So now we have defined the cost and index lists. Let us go through the iteration count under a for loop. So now we'll be calculating the cost and gradients from forward and backward propagation function, which we have defined here, right? We're using a sigmoid activation function whose range is between 0 and 1. So we'll be getting the cost and gradients out from the forward backward propagation function. So we're going to update the cost and the gradients on every iteration by calling this function. So what we do next is we're going to calculate the new weights and bias values. So this is the formula for calculating weight with respect to learning rate. Okay. So W is equal to W minus learning rate, which can be 0.05 or 0.001 set by you again, into the gradients of derivative weight, which has been calculated through the forward and backward propagation. So next one is bias. So bias is nothing but same formula, B minus learning rate into gradients of derivative bias. So what we do next is, in every 10 iterations, we are going to append the cost value into the cost list and append the index, the iteration number, in the index list. Clear? And we are going to print the result. So cost at this particular iteration is cost at 10th iteration is so and so. That's it. Next one is, let us define a parameters dictionary. So here we are going to store the optimized weights and bias values here, W and B, and we're going to plot the number of iterations versus cost in a matplotlib plot. And you must be knowing these steps, right? Same exercise we had been through back in our old visualization notebook. Label in x-axis iterations, y-axis cost, display the plot, and return the parameters here. So in a neural network, the parameters that matter the most are the weight and bias. These define the underlying neural network. So let us just define this. This is done. And this is a simple function for prediction. We are applying sigmoid activation function on Z. This is Z. Now the numpy is dot product between W transpose and X plus the bias. So we are calculating the Z here. So after calculating this, since we had the weights and biases from the previous one, you get a prediction out of this, right? There is nothing but a prediction because we are getting the weights and biases from this W and B. So with a sigmoid activation function, which in the sense of neural network implements logistic regression. So following which, let us define as empty numpy array filled with zeros as ypred. Following which, let us iterate through each and every image here. So if the probability that the image is, let's say, 0 is less than 0.5, then it is 0, or else it is 1. Alerting basis the probability. With the higher probability has the higher class, lower probability has a lower class. That's it. And returning our predictions. So predictions is done, and then this function is actually very easy. It just takes the parameters and prints them. So firstly, you are getting the dimensions of your data, which means the number of images. Parameters you pass is the training data, testing data, the learning rate you want to set, and the number of iterations that you want to have, want the neural network to have. Next thing is, let us define W and B by initializing the parameters basis the dimension. Following which, let us keep updating the new parameters by passing W and B and the training data along with your desired learning rate and the number of iterations you want in your model. After which, you are getting the predicted data here. So ypred test, which means predict the parameters from the testing data by passing xtest, and ypred train is predict the parameters by passing xtrain. So getting x and y predictions for testing and training data. Following which, let us calculate the accuracy. So this is how you calculate the accuracy. So training accuracy is this formula, format of 100 minus mean of prediction minus actual values into 100, followed by, for testing accuracy, 100 minus mean of predicted values versus minus actual values into 100. Following which, let us in this line perform logistic regression classification out of this function. I just knock this off, make it much more clear. Okay, this function is prepared now. I just pass this cell a bit higher. Yeah, and run the logistic regression here. Can you see this? Yes, and this one is something which we have defined it ourselves entirely. We are not calling any Keras or TensorFlow module to do it for us. So this is the power of logistic regression and defining your own parameters. You can replicate the same thing in TensorFlow by calling these parameters. It is up to you how you do it. But here, I just wanted to illustrate how you build a neural network from scratch without calling anything. Just with the use of the equation z is equal to w transpose dot x plus b. So as you can see in this graph, the loss function has fallen from 14 to 0.138 here. And this is the accuracy results. So training accuracy is 94% in identifying handwritten symbols. Hand symbols of 0 and 1, and test accuracy is 95%. So now we are also implementing logistic regression with scikit-learn, which is completely whatever we had done in our machine learning module. So I want to compare how the training has happened in our deep learning method using neural networks, activation functions, and Z function versus how it has happened in scikit-learn. So these two cells, I will leave it for you since you're already familiar with this. So this one closes the deep learning with logistic regression notebook. Okay, shall we start with loss functions now? So it is also used very well in optimizing the parameters of the neural networks, and it is calculated by matching the target, the actual value, and the predicted value by a neural network. Following which, as we had seen in our previous notebook where we had implemented logistic regression, we use the gradient descent method to optimize the weights of the network such that the loss function and hence the overall cost is minimized. So let us get into the hands-on by importing NumPy for NumPy arrays, pandas, then TensorFlow, and Matplotlib for plottings. Yeah. So following which, let us define a TensorFlow line space between -1 to +1 by 500. So start is -1, stop every iteration, and count 500. So it is a sequence of evenly spaced values generated beginning from start. So this is how it increases. So we'll see the actual use of this, and let's define a TensorFlow constant as target. These are the values we have. So the first loss function which we are going to see is the L2 loss. It is also known as L2 normalization or the Euclidean distance. So what it does is, it is nothing but the square of the distance to the target. So do you remember the quadratic equations graph? So L2 normalization, as we will see in this graph, is similar to that. And it is used commonly because it is pretty much curved near the target. Target is the zero value, and the algorithms can converge very easily. So in this we have L2 loss function, which is used primarily to minimize the error, which is the goal of every loss function, which is in this case is the sum of all the squared differences between the true value and the predicted value. So this is what the L2 loss function does is, it is used to minimize the error. Error is calculated as the sum of squares between the actual value and the predicted value. So let us define a TensorFlow session like we had done in our first class, and then get the values by squaring them using tf.square. Run the session.run upon this equation upon the xvals, target minus xvals. Get the array out as session.run of xvals, following which let us plot the array, the graph. So now do you notice anything? So this is very similar to that of the quadratic equation which you had seen back in school. Here, how the error is being calculated is the actual value minus the predicted value, which is squared and is plotted here. So this one wraps up our L2 loss function. So let's move on to the lasso loss, so also known as L1 loss. It is also, some people prefer to call L1 loss as absolute loss also. So why it is known as absolute loss is because in L1 normalization or L1 loss, instead of taking a square, we just take the absolute value. So here the difference between target and the actual value is squared, whereas in L1 loss we are going to take the actual value instead of squaring it. So why L1 loss is preferred? Because it handles outliers pretty well and does not steep for larger values. Though L1 normalization is not pretty smooth as the previous L2 normalization, and this is one of the reasons why this algorithm does not converge well towards the target. Target is this, and it does not converge well in this area, as you will see next in a L1 regularization algorithm. Let us just see how it looks like. Yeah. So it's pretty much like a linear equation because we're not squaring the differences. So this one is the L1 loss function. So the previously L2 loss function looked like a U here, which converges pretty well at the target, whereas the L1 loss function just has two lines that eject from the target. It appears like that, which is nothing but the absolute value between the actual minus predicted values. So next one is pseudo Huber loss. So it's actually a modified version of Huber loss, and the reason why I've taken this up is because it's pretty much smooth and it's a continuous approximation to the Huber loss function. So what it does is it tries to get the best out of the L1 and L2 loss functions by being convex near the target and less steep at the extreme values. So what it depends on is, it depends on an extra parameter which defines how steep will the loss function be. So whereas in the sense of statistics, Huber loss function is a loss function used in robust regression problems, and which is not very sensitive to outliers in the data than the squared error loss, which is L2 loss, which is this. So it actually combines the best features out of L1 loss and L2 loss, which is pretty good in our requirement. So I just define a TF constant of 0.25 in this case and apply the Huber loss function by multiplying the square of constant and the square of the target minus the actual values divided by the delta, which is the constant, minus 1. So this is the equation for the Huber loss function. Okay, now that we have defined the Huber loss, let us put it into a TensorFlow session and run it and plot the graph. So this is how this pseudo Huber loss function looks like. So it is unaffected by outliers. That's one good thing about this, and it converges pretty well at the target. This is something which we want, since it combines the best out of L1 loss and L2 loss. So now we will be exploring the loss functions for categorical data. These losses are preferably used in regression problems, the Huber loss, the L1 loss, and the L2 loss. So let us get into the categorical outcomes loss functions. So for that, let us just define a data set again from starting at -3, interval of 500 points, and define a TensorFlow constant of floating point 1 and targets. So this is done. And firstly, let us see hinge loss. So hinge loss is used mainly for maximum margin classifier, and it is this loss function was also used in the building of the support vector machine algorithm, which we had explored in machine learning. And as we are exploring the categorical outcomes, hinge loss is always used for classification problems. So this is the maximum margin classification by using tf.maximum function. And what we do is we will get the session.run upon the hinge y_vals function and plot the hinge loss graph. So this is how it looks like. So it's pretty much constant for values above 1, and it keeps on increasing towards the negative y-axis, x-axis in this. So this is how the hinge loss function works. The values will be lying on this line. So next one is the cross entropy loss functions, which we had also explored in our breast cancer detection, in which we used binary cross entropy, and in our immense data problem, we had used sparse categorical cross entropy function. What cross entropy is, it is also known as a log loss function. What it does is it measures the performance of your classification problem whose output is a probability value between 0 and 1. Hence it is used in categorical data problems, and categorical data means the target is categorical. And also cross entropy loss increases as the predicted probability, the probability predicted by a neural network diverges from the actual value. So if there's a huge diversion between the predicted value and the actual value, loss generally tends to increase, right? So that is what happens in cross entropy loss also. It tends to tell you by increasing its value. So this is the cross entropy loss functions formula, not to be memorized and all, but this is how it works. It uses by method of log functions. You have log here and log here. This is how it works. And let us run the session for this function and plot the graph. So this is how a cross entropy loss function looks like. As the loss increases, the value also keeps on diverging. That's what it tries to tell you. Next one is actually binary cross entropy loss. This one is also known as the sigmoid cross entropy loss because the output is nothing but 0, 1, which we had seen in a logistic regression notebook. So this is the actual formula for the cross entropy loss. The formula is quite big, hence I have loaded the sigmoid cross entropy with logit's function here. So it's pretty really complicated, so it will occupy a lot of space and cause confusion. So I just loaded the package from TensorFlow, neural networks, sigmoid cross entropy with logits, and passed the data and the targets. And now we got the function, apply session.run and plot it out. Yeah, we have loaded TensorFlow here, and this is how the loss function looks like. So it looks pretty much similar to that of categorical cross entropy. Only thing is that it moves away from the y-axis as it goes lower. And one more point to be noted in binary cross entropy is that negative values are considered. If you look at this, -3, -2, -1. Here you do not have negative values. That's another difference between categorical and binary cross entropy. So next one is the weight cross entropy loss. It's not used much, but it, as its name says, it's a weight version of the sigmoid cross entropy loss, which we have seen here, the sigmoid cross entropy loss here, which is nothing but the binary cross entropy loss, if we can call it by different names. So it is the extra parameter weight What it does is it multiplies the value with a positive target here. So I have again loaded the loss function from TensorFlow's neural network, weight cross entropy with logists, pass the validation data, targets, and the weights. So weight is nothing but a TensorFlow constant that holds the value 0.5. So let us run the session and get the graph out. This is how it looks like, similar to that of the binary cross entropy loss. So this one wraps up our loss functions.